Today on CityCast Chicago, there's a new office on the ballot in Tuesday's election. They're called police district councils. It's meant to give civilians more oversight of the police. Reporter Jim Daly explains how they're supposed to work. It's Wednesday, February 22nd. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Voters in each of the city's police districts will elect 3 candidates for a total of 66 across the city. Jim Daly is at the Tribe. When we first talked to Jim last fall about this, he was an editor at the Chicago Reader. We've already got the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. We've got another police commission. What are the main duties of this particular council, and how is it different than those others?
I think the main difference is, first of all, of course, that they're elected. Oversight bodies like COPA or its predecessor, the Independent Police Review Authority, and its predecessor, the Office of Professional Standards. None of these were elected. They were all appointed and therefore have, I don't know about less accountability to the people, but they
definitely have more connection to the mayor.
They definitely have more connection to the mayor, and can't be elected, can't be voted out of office the way these councils can.
So who is eligible to be on the district council? You said this will be comprised of civilians. What are the eligibility points?
So they have to have resided in the district for at least 1 year as of February 28th, the day of the election. They cannot be a member of the Citywide Commission on Public Safety, and they cannot have been an employee of the police department, Independent Police Review Authority, COPA, or the police board for any of the 3 years preceding the date on which their term begins.
You and your colleagues over at the Chicago Reader have kind of looked across some of the district councils and started to see who are the people putting their name in the hat. Who are a few that jump out to you?
So it's an interesting mix of people. There are city workers, there are abolitionist activists, there are just regular residents who seem to want more of a voice in their community. Some people have
some former CPS teachers in there.
Former teachers, yeah. So some people have ties to current politicians. There are a few who have been endorsed by various alderpersons, and one is a campaign manager for a candidate for alderperson. But by and large, these seem to be just regular folk, residents from the communities who, for whatever reason, want to be on these councils.
Mm-hmm. How will these police district councils interface with these other existing commissions, like the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability?
So one of the main ways that they interface with the Community Commission is by making recommendations and reporting findings and conclusions from the council's interaction with the community to the commission. And they can also nominate members to the commission. We currently have an interim commission that is serving until we have these district councils, which will then, I would think one of their first tasks will be to nominate candidates to the commission.
That will then go to the mayor's desk to be
That's correct,
officially selected.
Yes.
We actually talked to one of those interim commissioners, Isaac Troncoso, who's one of the 2 youth commissioners on the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, about what the commission actually does. Here's what Isaac had to say.
We can hold hearings. We actually held a budget meeting October 24th, where we had the superintendent come and answer some hard questions that we had about the police budget. We can recommend to fire the police superintendent, and we actually have to approve of the next superintendent that is hired. We can directly remove and appoint the head of COPA as well. So we have a lot of tools to change who's at the top. We can also require that the CPD produce documents and bring certain documents to light.
And it sounds like that this commission has a lot of, important powers. So what's left for the district council? How are they different?
I have been sort of thinking about these councils metaphorically as almost similar to local school councils that are elected by the people and have some oversight of schools. And then you've got the Board of Education, which is obviously a separate entity. And I think that there's some parallels here.
One of the things Isaac told me was that a big challenge for the commission is building trust, making sure people know it exists, staffing, getting the budget in order.
The main challenge is that we are appointed 8 months behind when we were supposed to be appointed, according to the ordinance that was passed. The other largest challenge is staffing, of course. We need money and people to accomplish the massive task that we have set before us, which is to change the relationship that Chicagoans have with their police force and vice versa. So having the money and people to do that is crucial. And we're projected to have about 4 more staff hired before the end of the year.
As we wait for these elected bodies and, getting 66 new people coordinated, do you think that we're looking at just more delays in this thing really getting off the ground?
Oh, I think that's true. To be fair, any expansion of democracy is going to require more work and more resources and more people, and all of that takes time as well. So I think we'll definitely know more after we see the composition of these councils, see which ones we've got people with more of an activist or abolitionist political bent on, and more who are and which ones have more people who are centrist or even pro-police. Because among the candidates that we've identified so far, there's a cross section of all of those views.
Have y'all seen these egg prices? Yeah, I'm talking about $7 a carton. And then we got rising rents on top of that. It's just too much. It makes you wonder if you're better off trying to buy a home, or at least getting your questions answered. Before I heard the How to Buy a Home podcast, I didn't even know what questions I should be asking. And host David Sidoni can get you the answers. Like, yes, your monthly mortgage might be cheaper than rent. Or no, you probably don't need to put 20% down. You can ask David those questions directly at howtobuyahome.com. Take advantage of this free resource and start listening to the How to Buy a Home podcast wherever you listen. Visit howtobuyahome.com and make this the last year you rent. I, like most of the people I, politic or have friendship with, I try to keep my contact with the police at a even keel of 0, right? A 0 out of 10. And my thought is, if I had a problem with police, I don't really know who to go to other than them, right? So who actually would I turn to if I had a problem with police right now before the election? Who could I speak to?
If you had a negative interaction with a police officer today, you could file a complaint with COPA and they would investigate it. I think COPA has had a bit of a better track record than IPRA at holding the police accountable. There are a number of cops in the last couple of years who I feel COPA did a pretty good job of investigating and making the correct recommendation to the department. Some of these include the cop who knocked out activist Miracle Boyd's tooth. He's no longer with the department, and part of the reason for that is because of the COPA investigation. I think, too, in addition to COPA, I think if you have a negative interaction with the cops, you should talk to a lawyer.
While those resources like COPA will remain, will it eventually become the responsibility of these councils to be the people that we go to with these complaints?
I think that's a good question. It's, as far as I know, that duty is not one of the duties that's specifically and concretely laid out. So there's duties that are very clearly laid out and can have benchmarks, like holding public meetings at least once a month or delegating district council members to meetings. But so these other things, such as establishing restorative justice processes or building trust with the community, those are the sorts of things that I think can be accomplished if these bodies are responsive to complaints from the people.
So I would be able to attend a monthly meeting with members from my district council and say, hey, this happened. This is, what the police response was. This is the concerns I have. And then it can come to somebody like me who's talking with, the superintendent or chiefs of police, and it can flow all the way up from the neighborhood to the top. So when we have 66 people asking you, what do you need to feel safer on the streets? That will be a massive arm of community engagement and really bringing it down to, the sidewalk level.
We'll have to see how that shakes out and what that looks like and what sorts of processes they establish to gather input and to field concerns. I think they should field concerns. These are elected officials at a certain point. They come from the community and they should be responsive to the communities that they serve. And one part of that is hearing complaints about misconduct.
There are a lot of layers to this new system, and frankly, it can be confusing for anyone who isn't following the process closely. Do these layers help or hurt efforts to bring accountability to the police? Because it seems like we've put two more layers of, yes, oversight, yes, potential accountability, but also two layers between me and the systems for which I'm trying to change and hold accountable.
What they do in practice is provide an avenue for the people to have a say in who is involved in police oversight. That said, and despite the gains that have been made in terms of offices like COPA over the past 50, 60 years that the people have been fighting for this sort of thing, it's my opinion that the largest bulwark against accountability comes from within the department itself. It comes from the current superintendent, who often disagrees with COPA's recommendations, who has fought to keep violent officers on the force, who most recently kept an officer who's a member of the far-right hate group Proud Boys on the department, despite COPA's recommendation not to. So ultimately, the fact that the police board and the superintendent have so much sway over whether or not cops are fired reduces the effectiveness of civilian oversight. I think, additionally, we would be remiss if we didn't address what looks to me like an entrenched culture within the rank and file of the department to protect bad officers, to keep a blue wall of silence, to cover for one another when misconduct occurs. These are all things that I don't know if a more democratic process addresses. And all of this is especially true when there is a mayor who overwhelmingly supports the police, who has increased their budget, who defended the department despite the misconduct that occurred during the 2020 protests. When you have that sort of leadership, the effect that has, in my opinion, is to, if not stifle, certainly slow down and stymie efforts to reform a department.
When we think about benchmarks, what would success look like to you as someone who has investigated misconduct?
I think that's a really great question, because there's a degree to which these councils can be fulfilling the mandates set out in the municipal ordinance that set them up. But to what degree does that actually translate to greater community control of the police? Because that's what this was originally came out of, was civilian oversight and civilian control of the department. There's a degree to which this does not grant us civilian control of the department, but it grants us input. I don't expect that 6 months after these councils are set up, we're going to suddenly have a wholly new department.
I tend to think that having more people in the room is never bad for transparency and accountability. We were super lucky at our first meeting to have, at least by my count, over 400 people in person in attendance. I don't want to be sitting in a room for a year, raising awareness or doing nothing. I want hard changes. But in addition to that, the community keeping the trust in us and still having hundreds of people at our meetings, if not more, in a year, that's how I know we'll be successful.
If you look at the history of policing in Chicago, especially since the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, there has been a concerted push from the people to reduce the degree to which the police are a violent occupying force in communities and try to mitigate the worst excesses of this department, and we have made progress. Whether that progress is enough, whether that progress looks like abolition, or is simply a long road to somewhere that we don't know what the end looks like, is an open question, I think.
Jim Daly is an editor at The Tribe. He co-wrote a very detailed voter's guide to police district councils where you can learn more about the candidates in your district. Check out the link in the show notes. Before I let you go, a little bit of news, y'all. Quick reminder, early voting sites are open in all 50 wards, and tomorrow is your last day to request a vote by mail ballot. But Chicago allows same-day registration. For all your voting questions, check out the Chicago Board of Elections link in the show notes. On the 4-year anniversary of a wrongful raid of her home, Anjanette Young endorsed Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson for mayor. Heads up, the Logan Square, California, and Belmont Blue Line stations will be closed Friday through Monday. There will be free shuttle buses between the Addison and Western stations. And some good news to get you through. Join me and Public Narrative for a conversation tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Cafe Logan in Hyde Park, titled Black, Male, and Under Scrutiny. I'm sitting down with Blair Jackson, a student at Butler College Prep. As always, I appreciate you for listening. I'm excited to be back on the mic. Please sign up for our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, at chicago.citycast.fm, and leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Ooh, you're losing breath, boyo. Have you not done this in a while? One more time from the top.